Imagine buying shares in a small company that made computer chips for gamers. Nothing revolutionary. Nothing that dominated the headlines. Just another technology company competing in a crowded market. Then imagine waking up 30 years later and discovering that same company is worth over $4 trillion. More valuable than many of the world's biggest corporations combined. Sounds unbelievable. Yet that's exactly what happened. Today, NVIDIA sits at the center of the artificial intelligence revolution. Its technology powers AI models, cloud computing, robotics, autonomous vehicles, scientific research, and some of the most advanced supercomputers on Earth. But here's the surprising part. NVIDIA didn't become successful because it predicted the future perfectly. It became successful because it spent decades preparing for a future that hadn't arrived yet. While everyone else focused on solving today's problems, NVIDIA quietly built the tools that tomorrow would need. And when artificial intelligence finally exploded, the world realized there was only one company ready for it. This is the story of how NVIDIA became one of the most valuable companies in history. The beginning, let's talk about Alex. In 1999, Alex built his very first gaming computer. Like millions of gamers at the time, he bought an NVIDIA graphics card because it made games look smoother and more realistic. To Alex, it was simply another computer component. He never imagined that the same technology sitting inside his gaming PC would one day become one of the most valuable products in the world. Back then, very few people paid attention to NVIDIA. Investors focused on companies like Intel and Microsoft. Most people had never even heard the company's name. It was known as a niche hardware manufacturer serving gamers. But while the world saw a gaming company, NVIDIA saw something much bigger. The company believed graphics processors could eventually solve problems far beyond video games. At the time, that idea sounded almost ridiculous. What is NVIDIA? To understand NVIDIA's success, you first need to understand what it actually builds. Traditional computer processors, known as CPUs, are designed to perform many different tasks one after another. Imagine a single chef preparing meals one at a time. Graphics processing units, or GPUs, work differently. Instead of one chef, imagine thousands of chefs cooking simultaneously. GPUs are designed to perform thousands of calculations in parallel. Originally, this made them perfect for rendering realistic graphics inside video games. But engineers eventually realized something extraordinary. Those same chips could also process enormous mathematical calculations much faster than traditional processors. Suddenly, GPUs weren't just useful for games. They had the potential to transform science, engineering, medicine, and eventually artificial intelligence. The gaming company that wasn't just about games for many years. NVIDIA was viewed almost entirely as a gaming business. Every new graphics card attracted gamers looking for better performance. Sales were growing steadily. The company was profitable. Most businesses would have been satisfied. But NVIDIA's leadership wasn't interested in simply making better gaming hardware. They believed GPUs could become the future of computing itself. That belief required enormous investment. Research became more expensive. Development cycles grew longer. Billions of dollars were spent pursuing technology that had almost no commercial demand at the time. Investors questioned whether the company was wasting money chasing an uncertain future. Yet NVIDIA kept moving forward, convinced that one day the world would need far more computing power than traditional processors could provide. The biggest bet in 2006, NVIDIA made one of the most important decisions in its history. Instead of focusing only on hardware, it introduced a software platform called CUDA. CUDA allowed programmers to use NVIDIA's graphics processors for general computing rather than only graphics. At first, very few people cared. Universities experimented with it. Scientists used it for research. Engineers began testing it for simulations. Medical researchers analyzed complex biological data. Weather scientists modeled climate systems. Artificial intelligence researchers quietly discovered that GPUs dramatically accelerated machine learning. None of this made major headlines. Revenue barely changed. But NVIDIA wasn't chasing immediate profits. It was building an ecosystem that would become almost impossible to replace. Why ecosystems matter? Imagine buying a smartphone with no apps available. No matter how advanced the hardware is, people won't use it if developers ignore the platform. Technology is never just hardware. It depends on software, developers, education, tools, documentation, and communities. NVIDIA understood this better than almost anyone. By continuously improving CUDA for nearly 2 decades, the company encouraged millions of developers to build software specifically designed for its hardware. Universities taught students using CUDA. Researchers published scientific papers based on CUDA. Businesses optimized entire systems around CUDA. Every new developer made the platform stronger. Every new application attracted more customers. Eventually, NVIDIA wasn't simply selling chips anymore. It was selling access to an entire ecosystem. Then AI arrived. For decades, artificial intelligence remained largely confined to research laboratories. Scientists believed AI had incredible potential, but the computing power required was simply too expensive. Then advances in machine learning and deep learning changed everything. Neural networks grew larger. Data sets exploded. Researchers needed unprecedented computational performance. Suddenly, the GPUs NVIDIA had spent decades refining became exactly what AI required. The company didn't invent artificial intelligence. It simply happened to build the perfect tools at exactly the right moment. What looked like a risky investment suddenly became one of the greatest business decisions in modern history. The exact moment then came the explosion of generative artificial intelligence. Businesses everywhere rushed to develop AI systems. Technology companies invested billions. Cloud providers expanded their infrastructure. Startups emerged almost overnight. Everyone wanted access to advanced AI. But training modern AI models required enormous numbers of powerful GPUs. Demand exploded faster than supply. Companies placed massive orders months in advance. Waiting lists grew longer. NVIDIA's factories struggled to keep pace. Revenue surged. Profits reached record levels. Investors suddenly realized that one company had quietly become the foundation upon which the AI revolution depended. Why competitors couldn't catch up? Many people wondered why competitors couldn't simply build similar chips. The answer wasn't just hardware. It was time. For nearly 20 years, NVIDIA had invested in software, developer tools, research partnerships, educational programs, and engineering expertise. Entire industries had already optimized their systems around NVIDIA technology. Researchers trained students using CUDA. Software companies built products around CUDA. Businesses invested billions designing infrastructure specifically for NVIDIA hardware. Switching became incredibly expensive. Competitors weren't simply competing against a chip manufacturer. They were competing against decades of accumulated knowledge and an ecosystem built one developer at a time. The power of compounding. Most people associate compounding with investing, but NVIDIA demonstrates that almost everything compounds. Knowledge compounds. Research compounds. Engineering experience compounds. Software ecosystems compound. Every new generation of chips improved the next. Every improvement attracted more developers. More developers created better software. Better software attracted more customers. More customers funded more research. Over 30 years, this cycle repeated again and again until NVIDIA built a lead that became extraordinarily difficult for competitors to overcome. What appeared to be overnight success was actually the result of thousands of small improvements accumulating over decades. The lesson most people miss today: people look at NVIDIA's market value and assume the company became successful because of artificial intelligence. But AI was only the catalyst. The real story began decades earlier. Long before Wall Street paid attention. Long before headlines celebrated AI. Long before investors rushed to buy shares. NVIDIA spent years making decisions that produced little immediate reward. The company invested when few people believed the opportunity existed. By the time the rest of the world recognized AI's importance, NVIDIA had already built the infrastructure everyone needed. The most valuable resource. People often say NVIDIA sells computer chips. In reality, it sells computing power. Every breakthrough in artificial intelligence requires more computation. Every new AI model requires more processing. Robotics, autonomous vehicles, scientific simulations, biotechnology, climate research, and countless future technologies all require increasingly powerful computing systems. NVIDIA supplies the engines behind those systems. Investors aren't simply valuing today's profits. They're valuing the company's position at the center of one of the most important technological shifts in history. A powerful example: imagine two construction companies. One waits until a city becomes crowded before building highways. The other spends decades building roads long before anyone arrives. For years, those empty highways seem like wasted money. Critics question the investment. Shareholders become impatient. Then millions of people move into the city. Suddenly, every business, every commuter, and every delivery truck depends on those highways. That's exactly what NVIDIA did. It built the infrastructure for artificial intelligence years before artificial intelligence became mainstream. When demand finally arrived, the roads were already built. Final message: NVIDIA's story isn't really about semiconductors. It's about patience, preparation, and long-term thinking. The company didn't become one of the world's most valuable businesses because it chased every trend. It became successful because it committed to a vision long before anyone else fully understood its importance. Great companies rarely build the future after it arrives. They build it while everyone else is still focused on the present. So tonight, ask yourself one question. Are you preparing for opportunities that don't exist yet? Or are you simply reacting to opportunities everyone else already sees? Because history shows that the biggest rewards often belong to those who start building long before the world realizes what they're building.